Hello, nonprofit leaders. I'm Sarah Olivieri, your host, and this podcast is here to assist people like you, executive directors, board members, and other nonprofit leaders make a bigger impact with insights, tips, and lessons learned from nonprofit leaders and experts. Having been an executive director, a board member, and now a consultant and coach, I truly understand the challenges you face. And that's why I'm here. I'm all about working smarter, not harder, so you can make a bigger impact without the burnout. And so is our sponsor, DonorBox. DonorBox isn't just a suite of helpful fundraising tools, it's a partner that helps you raise more money and supports you in retaining your donors. I love their forward-thinking approach. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. And don't forget to sign up for the Inspired Nonprofit Leadership newsletter, where you'll get bite-sized, actionable tips just for nonprofit leaders like you, delivered weekly to your inbox. Sign up at inspirednonprofitleadership.com/sign up. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. My guest today is Josh Bloomfield, who is the CEO and founder of GiveCloud, which is transforming the way nonprofits engage donors and raise funds. And we're going to be talking about how you can transform the way you engage donors and raise funds. He has a background in sales strategy and software development and has spent over a decade building enterprise solutions, including for the U.S. government. His passion lies in helping nonprofits focus less on fundraising and more on their mission to change the world, empowering them through innovative, donor-centric technology. Welcome, Josh. It's such a pleasure to have here. Before we get nerdy around fundraising, will you share something about yourself personally to round you out for our audience?
Sure. Been married for 18 years. I got 2 daughters. My oldest is Poppy. My youngest is Penny Lane, and my family's probably my pride and joy and the thing I'm most jazzed about in life and the thing I'm most proud of. So that's what comes to mind immediately when you ask me to share something personally. Also love music, love songwriting, post some of that on my Instagram account, and love doing that for fun.
Love it. I love it. And congratulations on being married for 18 years.
Thank
That
you.
is an accomplishment for sure. And having kids too.
Yeah. Yep.
But you get to keep them whether you like it or not. So.
Fair enough.
Well, let's talk a little bit about fundraising. And clearly you're one of those folks who've said kind of like the traditional things are like not really as effective as maybe you'd like them to be, which is very much the camp that I'm in. So tell me a little bit about like, how have you gotten to where you are now when it comes to fundraising? And what are the things that you think people need to do really differently?
Yeah. A lot of this started watching the nonprofits I worked with closely really struggle to fundraise online. Donating on their web pages felt more like filling out an IRS form of some kind. Felt little inspiration, little connection. Honestly thought as a donor, there's gotta be a better way. So we developed a piece of software called GiveCloud. And the idea behind the piece of software was to really create a more human connection between donors and nonprofits. We wanted to go beyond creating a digital experience that just kind of looked prettier than the rest, to understand what it would take in a digital experience for a donor to actually feel a genuine connection with the impact that they are trying to fund. And through that journey, we've trademarked fundraising, which is kind of our spin on fundraising. It's this thought leadership that compels us to put the heart before the wallet, to put connection before conversion, and delight before data, so that we create experiences that really delight donors, because a delighted donor becomes a more devoted donor, and a devoted donor is going to give faster, they're going to give more frequently, and they're going to be more likely to tell their friends and family about it.
Yeah, I love it. And what were some of the things, before we go into like the what you should do, what are some of the things that you have seen in your journey that you're like, why is this, like, why am I having to do this? What was that form experience?
Oh, yeah. I kind of said it when I made the IRS form comment, but again, uninspired forms that clearly don't look like or match the digital experiences I'm interacting with on a day-to-day basis, right? It's like, I'll order my food on my favorite food sharing app. I'll order my groceries from my favorite grocery store, and then I donate to a nonprofit. And there's so much dissonance in that experience. There's, again, no connection to where that money is going. There's no real inspiration around the design or the flow. That was part of the dissonance that I think we all as donors sometimes experience when we donate to our favorite nonprofit. And like, the last thing we want to do is impose on them, spending the time and money and effort to have to improve those experiences. And so maybe we just deal with it. And yet, how much more impactful could these organizations be if they were able to hit that bar of, or that, again, just like you or I have become used to, which is not necessarily tech savviness, but tech dependence. Very different things happening in our culture right now. We're not necessarily savvy with tech, but as a culture, we're becoming more dependent on tech. And so, it's now table stakes, not just to be able to accept a donation online, but for that experience to feel connected and inspired.
Yeah, there's so many nuggets in what you just said. I'm going to go through, just kind of highlight a few of them. A concept around donors can feel like they are imposing on you. And this doesn't get talked about enough. I often talk about it when I'm talking to people, like when the nonprofits feel like, oh, like, am I annoying donors by asking them, like making an ask? And I'm like, it feels like an imposition if they want to give to you and you don't ask, right? If you aren't giving them opportunities to give, right? So it's not like you're annoying them by asking, you're giving them opportunities to give and they want to give. So that's a really big nugget. And I love that you use the word imposing, because I think when we put ourselves in donors' shoes, it really feels that way. The gap between the technological experience where nonprofits are at and for-profits. I actually just got a new iPhone yesterday, and it was, Apple, who's like very good at experiences, was like,
right.
Do you already have an iPhone? Yes. Okay, stick your new iPhone next to the old iPhone. Yep. And then I didn't have to press any more buttons. Basically, I had to do a little pairing scan, and approve a couple things for my own security. But it was such a joyful experience. And within a few minutes, and like almost no form, like I think I've clicked a few buttons. I didn't really have to enter any information. Everything I loved from my old iPhone, like all my personalization, was on my new iPhone. And there was no frustration. It was so simple and easy. And so we have that kind of experience with some very complex technology. Mm-hmm. And then I have seen those forms you are talking about when I've had the experience, like, why are you asking me so many questions, right? Like, I don't know. I just wanted to give you money, and now I have to pick where the money's going to go. Like, I don't know. Maybe I should come back and fill out this form later. Or like, why are you asking me on a new window to confirm what I just confirmed? Like, I said I wanted now, like, is it a click twice thing? Like, now I'm nervous, right? Like, there's so much resistance in so many of those processes. And to go a layer deeper, and I know I'm like, I'm on your soapbox for you right now. But as someone who I used to do marketing for nonprofits, I don't anymore. And part of that process often involved advising folks in picking some sort of CRM, or like how are we actually going to collect these donations? And again, I found the companies back then, when I asked them, who are like creating donation forms, like, what research did you do around optimizing the layout of your restricted donation page? Mm-hmm. And zero was the answer I kept doing. Research around optimizing the page? Like, we just let some designers let it look pretty and called it that. And I was like, well, there's a little more to making a great donation experience than just sending it to a couple graphic designers in-house. So I'm going to stop there. I'm sure that's brought up some things for you. So I'm not even going to ask you another question. I'm just going to ask you for your follow-up thoughts.
Oh, okay. You shared a couple of great nuggets as well. Can you remind me what you shared just at the front half of this? And maybe you can edit this part out of the podcast, but you said something at the beginning is that I wanted to respond to, and it was absolutely fire.
Was it the feeling about imposing?
Yes, the feeling about imposing. You were talking about the imposing. I had never thought about that before, Sarah. That was brilliant. But the comment I wanted to make on that, the donor imposing on the nonprofit.
You're talking about that it feels, I think, like donors to give without being asked feels like an imposition. It feels awkward. And in the past, I've talked about it like showing up to a party uninvited. Like, even if it's your best friend, if your best friend is hosting a party and they don't invite you, it's awkward to go.
It is. I am embarrassed that I cannot for the life of me get back on my train of thought on that. But I'm like off the podcast, I'm going to stew on that. But I'll give you my answer here that you can edit directly to. I don't think I have much more to add. I mean, you absolutely nailed a lot of those dynamics. And I'm inspired by what you shared around that feeling of imposition. And I'm aware that organizations are worried about imposing on donors, but I wasn't fully aware of that reciprocation before. I really love that.
Yeah, well, thank you. So let's talk about like how to make this nice. And you know, I don't usually like when talking to someone who's developed a tool, go into the tool, but I want to now. I want to hear what you've gone through. What are some of the lessons you've learned at GiveCloud? As I'm sure like you didn't just release the first version of your form and call it quits. Like, what have you learned along the way? What is in there, people who want to use GiveCloud now, that is really going to highlight a positive experience?
Yeah, it has been a journey. You know, I know that to a lot of nonprofits, how they answer that question that you asked, you know, what have you done to optimize the form? There are companies like GiveCloud where this is all we do. We've built landing pages, campaign landing pages, and donation form experiences where we've done that work for you. So it doesn't have to be a daunting exercise to optimize. You can partner with an organization like GiveCloud and kind of have a lot of the baked in optimization. As a journey we've gone through. What's really interesting about the nonprofit space is that it's pretty well accepted that the nonprofit space is maybe 10 to 15 years behind e-commerce and you know, for-profit commerce. There are so many parallel lessons we can borrow without even doing the optimization testing yet. The idea
because like Amazon did it really well already, and we can assume.
Precisely.
Right?
We can take a look at some of the most high converting checkouts and ask ourselves, go beyond what does this subjectively and actually analyze objectively what was the process I was stepped through. I was asked this, then I was asked this. I wonder why they didn't do it the opposite way. Does anyone else do it the opposite way? No, that must be a pattern. We do this first, then we do this. And well, why aren't they asking for you know, whether I'm a doctor, Mr., Mrs., Amazon's not asking for that. Well, I wonder why that is. Asking for my birthday or my religious affiliation. And I mean, these are some of the questions that are asked during a nonprofit donation checkout that I know this data is important to you nonprofits, by the way. I understand. And we've got some solutions that we've baked into our process to allow you to ask those questions post-transaction, because those aren't parts of a transaction that you want, you know, those aren't parts of the donation process you want before the transaction. That is going to create unnecessary friction, and you want to capitalize on the momentum you've created up until pushing that final checkout button. You know, there's also something else happening in society right now that gets a really bad rap, and probably rightfully so, which is social media and different tactics they use to keep your attention, to keep you in their app, they are tugging on your emotions. They are tugging on dopamine hits. They are tugging on connection. And they've used these tactics to keep you in the app. But what if we could redeem these tactics for they were originally designed for, to keep us connected, to help have us making an impact for our communities. And so a lot of what we've done is tried to understand what are the design patterns inside these apps that are, being used to keep our attention elsewhere, that could be used to keep our attention on a form, and could be used to motivate us through a process, and could be used to motivate us to give more and to be more connected to that nonprofit after the fact and to share it and so on. And again, this is all part of this delicate balance of art and science that we call trust raising at GiveCloud.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that, but for anybody wondering, is this hard? Is this complicated? I just want to remind folks, our brains are wired for reward in such a simple way. And I'll just share a personal example of a task tracking app that I use and my clients learn to use. And what makes it so powerful is when you click the button that you finish the task, it goes ding. And I set it so that it also changes color to green. And the psychological power of being able to go ding, 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 and then look at my week and see that I turned the whole board green, that is powerful.
It's real.
And it's just a ding and a color. But, on the flip side, I've heard people who want to get less addicted to their phones. You just put your phone in black and white, and all of a sudden you don't want to use it anymore because we're so motivated by color. Yeah, I don't know about the Android folks out there, but on the iPhone, you can set a button to turn. It's like a mode, an accessibility mode, and it just makes everything black and white. And it's crazy.
That is fascinating.
I see you're like,
I am. That's a really cool insight.
Yeah. So these things can be really simple and highly effective. I want to ask you about trust, because I've heard, this concept about trust building. It's something that I really believe in. So what does that mean? What does that look like to you?
Oh man, it's some of my very early thought leadership on this. I would actually kind of describe this gentleman that might show up on the street and start asking you questions. And he's a little worse for wear. He maybe he's got a couple stains on his shirt and a loose tie and hasn't shaven in a couple of days. And you are just off put because something's up, and they may have a completely genuine heart and a completely genuine mission, but something in your gut is just going, there's a dissonance between what they're saying and what I'm experiencing. And this is the analogy that I would try to use with nonprofits to help them understand why the look and feel of their donation form matters. It's not a matter of beauty and design. It's a matter of trust. When someone experiences a donation form and they can't really put their finger on it exactly, from a tactical standpoint, there's weird alignment issues. The form fields are aligned differently, and one of the fields is a little bit bigger than the other. And the average donor is not quite going to describe it that way. They're just going to look at that and go, something feels off. And someone might point out, is it because the alignment's weird there? Maybe, but it's just that experience of, it's that real gut sense. Brene Brown has some really great thought leadership on trust and on vulnerability. And I love how she talks about trust, that it's really built in small moments. It isn't these grand gestures that we do in our relationship. It's the coffee that you bring to your partner every morning. It's that you're there after every argument. It's just that consistency. And it's the same with design in donation forms. It's just getting all the little things right. Clean form design, taking things one step at a time, not over cluttering the experience. Those are some of the thoughts that come to mind when you ask me about trust. Yeah. It's unsettling. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Precisely. Yep. 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 I think it depends on the context. I know the reality is we are far more emotional in our decision making than we'll admit. Referenced this book before. Haidt wrote a book in 2012 called The Righteous Mind, and he kind of studies how it is we rationalize our morality. Why do we think we're right versus the other side? And why are they so wrong? And research shows that oftentimes we've made a decision in our, like in the emotional subconscious centers of our brain before we're even aware of it. And our reasoning looks a lot more like a lawyer defending a predetermined side of the argument and less like a judge that's actually guiding us towards, true wisdom. And I guess I share this to say, given how I understand we make decisions, and it is very feeling based, it's very emotionally based. I think trust is a feeling. I don't think that makes it less valuable. I think it actually makes it more nuanced, and I think it forces us to make sure that it is true, because the only way to impact someone's core feelings is through consistency. It's through all those small sensory things you're picking up about that organization, that really well placed message that you clicked on that took you to a really well placed donation form that just had no red flags in it, and there's this continuing to move your emotions and your feeling of trust towards and through to action. So yeah, being asked on the fly, I would say it's a feeling.
It's a hard question, I know. And I love that you said consistency, because I think that's so key. And I think, one of the problems with those old forms in the nonprofit, the donation form, is you have this high quality, engaging experience with the nonprofit, and then all of a sudden you hit the form and it's like, I'm talking to someone totally different. Mm-hmm. And that lack of consistency causes people to lose trust. And it'd almost be better, right, that you just have a bad experience the whole way and then hit the bad form, be like, this is just par for the course. And we see that in the nonprofit space, right? People assume all the time that just working at a nonprofit just sucks. You're just going to be poor, and you're just going to be under-resourced, and you're just going to do it anyway. And the nonprofit space gets far. I don't agree with doing it that way, but it's consistent. And people keep signing up for it because it's what they expect.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna get off my soapbox.
It's fine.
Consistency is key.
And I mean, reflecting more on my answer, like I even raising my two daughters, I want them to have such confidence in their gut. If you're in a situation and your gut is telling you something's off, which is really their feeling, and them picking up on all those little subconscious moments that I'm not in a safe environment, I don't want them to take the objective writing on the walls that, this person's saying it's safe, and we're in someone's safe house. I don't want them to pay attention to those obvious things. I would rather them trust their gut and get out of that situation, call dad, call mom. I would go beyond saying trust is a feeling and say, like, I think we don't give our subconscious and our emotions enough credit on all of the elements they pick up in society or in our everyday environment that guide us towards trustworthy connection, trustworthy relationship, trustworthy interaction, trustworthy transaction.
Yeah, we are our brains are so tuned for trust. And to kind of go into like a finer point of anybody who's studied marketing has probably at one point heard the phrase, we want people to know, like, and trust us. And while that rolls off the tongue, being a student of marketing and really thinking about behavior, it's more like once they know us, then we go through a loop of they have to trust, and then they'll take a step to like.
Yeah.
And then they trust some more, and then they'll take a step to like. And so like, even just, when I used to build websites, when you go to somebody's homepage or whatever page for the first time, the first question our brain is asking is, am I safe here? Did I did I click the right link? Was I taken to, right? And it's only after that they go, yes, I'm in the right place. I walked through the right door, that they say, oh, am I about to enjoy myself, right? And then, there's layers of that trust and like onion. So I wished, though, that marketers, that it just doesn't sound as good to say no trust and like. It's kind of a rough, doesn't flow off the tongue. But I think that's how that process goes.
I love it. And I mean, on that point, the average person is the average person's only becoming more aware of things that feel fishy. I know that here at GiveCloud and a lot of partner companies that we work with, cybersecurity is one of the number one risks we face. And cybersecurity training involves all of our teams being hyper aware of that fishy looking email, of that fishy looking form, of that fishy looking website. And I guess that bar for trust is only going up.
It is. And, kind of circling back to kids, I have a son who's just turned 12, and he is like, even at age, 9 and 10, he's warning me like, don't click that link. Yeah. That's a scam. Like, he is so aware of scams and, how people, who you have to watch out for in games. Oh, they could be using a voice modulator. You can't trust what their voice, you can't, trust that they're actually young, right? And so like we have this new generation, and if we want to think about future proofing our fundraising efforts, that new generation is like hyper attuned to anything the slightest bit fishy, and they're out of there, right? And they've got plenty of options to do instead. So whereas like compare that to his grandparents who are in their late 70s and early 80s, and they're only just beginning to be aware that, the person on the phone saying they're their grandson is not their grandson, or, those things that, and we have a culture that is increasingly saturated with people trying to exploit trust. And so what you're doing, I think, at GiveCloud is only going to become more and more relevant as that younger generation becomes a generation of donors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I know all of what Sarah and I are sharing could sound very overwhelming to nonprofits going, is it really this much involved? Is it really, again, this is the reason why companies like GiveCloud exists, is so that you don't need to worry about all of these details. And maybe you could also have some appreciation for the level of concern and care that teams like ours are putting into creating that level of trust, reinforcing that level of trust through every single click of your fundraising experience.
I love that. Well, we're at time. That was such a nice way to wrap up, but I'll still ask, I think that's such a, that is a word of wisdom, even though some people might be hearing it sound like a promotion, because I think in the nonprofit space, we're overly sensitive to promotions, but people develop tools and they care about them, some more than others. And it is true, like you don't have to focus on that. So any final words of wisdom for our listeners, and how should people get in touch, learn about GiveCloud, learn about your work?
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, whether it's GiveCloud or not, try a digital tool. Try a very modern giving experience. And there's a couple of us out there. I know my sales team is cringing right now saying, Josh, you got to promote GiveCloud. Listen, GiveCloud's the best at it, but there are alternatives. This isn't self-promotion. All of us as founders who have created these companies have done it because we know you need support. And as long as you're using that modern tool, we truly are happy to see your organization creating deeper connection with owners. As far as where to find GiveCloud, you can visit our website, givecloud.com. If you want to reach out to me directly and chat about fundraising or chat how GiveCloud might be a good fit for your organization, my email address, josh@givecloud.com. You can hit me up directly.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Josh. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you out there for tuning in and for everything you do to make our communities better. Before you sign off, just a small favor for everyone out there. If you could share this podcast with a friend or colleague who would benefit from these conversations, it will help them and it will help other folks who you don't even know discover the podcast through the power of the algorithms that are out there. And remember, in case you're feeling overwhelmed, nonprofits are actually more complex than for-profits. And the secret to getting a grip on that, what I call the nonprofit game of whack-a-mole, is working smarter, not harder, not burning yourself out. So until next time, take care of yourself.
You've been listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode or the bonus episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. Tune in every week for more useful insights and wisdom on nonprofit leadership. Thanks so much for all you do for the communities you serve. Until next time, all the best.